protesters demand a rapid inquiry into the murder of a top Kenyan election official. Gabon's Youth and Sport Ministry launches a program to promote women's fitness. And youth leaders from sub-Saharan Africa gather at an American college for an Ideas Summit. Africa 54 starts right now.
This is Africa 54. Good evening. I'm Heidi Adams-Fitzpatrick, in for Vincent Makori, who is on assignment. Officials from Kenya's Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission joined human rights organizations in a protest in Nairobi on Tuesday. They say they're worried and want answers from Kenyan authorities following the murder of a senior electoral official. Africa 54's Vincent Makori is in Nairobi for us tonight with this report.
Kenyans are still in shock and trying to come to terms with the grisly murder of Chris Msando, acting ICT director of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission of Kenya, IEBC. The electoral body officials joined human rights activists in a protest in Nairobi early Tuesday, a day after the discovery of Mr. Msando's body and that of a female.
The apparent murder of Mr. Chris Msando, acting ICT director of the IEBC, is a deeply troubling development, particularly given that there are only 7 days to go before the general election on the 8th of August 2017. The timing of his torture and murder serves to undermine Kenya's election management body at this most crucial time in the work of the IEBC.
So far, authorities have only said they have launched investigations and that they are following crucial leads that might result in arrests. With so much unknown, Kenyans across the board have been left with only more questions.
The perception is that Chris Msando has been killed in a manner that has something to do with his role at IEBC. If that perception is what the public has, it is what will operate as the country goes into elections.
Mr. Msando was seen as the man at the electoral body who would ensure that these systems will not be compromised by any who may want to infiltrate the IEBC servers in efforts to manipulate the August 8th election results. Speculation is rife now that someone or certain people bent on interfering with the voting process may be behind Msando's murder to get critical information or send a message.
An intimidated and fearful staff cannot fully deliver on its mandate or respect its oath to act without fear or favor in carrying out their important responsibilities it has been entrusted by the citizens of Kenya.
Among those who attended Tuesday's protest was the chairman of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, Wafula Chebukati.
Chris Msando is a very senior manager in our ICT department. He's a team player. At the time he was murdered, the commission was just about to roll out a simulation exercise to confirm that our ICT department is ready to transmit results to Kenyans on the August 8th, after the August 8th general election.
Kenyans are asking whether Mr. Msando's killers might have taken important information from him, which then could now be used to compromise the upcoming elections. Mr. Chebukati sought to reassure the nation.
I want to assure you that, the system, our servers, our networks are secure. Whoever tortured him, I don't think there's anything that he will have found that would be useful to him, assuming that that's what he was looking for.
More than anybody else, IEBC officials are still trying to come to terms with the shocking murder of their colleague, even as they continue with preparations for the elections only days away. The chairman of the IEBC has demanded that the government provide each one of them security in order for them to discharge their duties without constant fear.
Well, for more insight on the death of Chris Msando, as well as how this could impact the upcoming Kenyan election, Vincent Makori joins us live now via Skype from Nairobi. Vincent, a very good evening to you.
Good evening to you, Heidi.
Vincent, many questions, many concerns tonight. Can we expect to hear more about the circumstances surrounding Chris Msando's death before Kenyans go to the polls next week?
Too many things are happening at this time, with the campaigns winding down, and also a lot of the preparations just to put the process in motion. We do not expect to hear so much because the police have said they've launched an investigation. One of the things that we can expect is that they will tell us they're still investigating. In fact, though there was word that they were enlisting even the help of the FBI, or perhaps the FBI had offered to help in the investigations. What is likely to happen is that the police will slow down in this process until perhaps the elections are over, unless, of course, there's a good surprise to every Kenyan that they get to arrest somebody, because they promise that there are some leads they are pursuing that could help in unraveling this mystery. But as the process usually operates around here, it's likely to be a slow process, and people will be caught up, of course, in the election process, which is just a few days away. But that investigation may not yield anything before the election.
Now, speaking of leads and all the speculation about how Msando's death could impact the election, are you hearing anything to suggest that Msando's death could not have been linked to his job or to politics?
Well, nobody thinks that this was related to any other thing other than the elections. The fact that he was one of the most vocal people in terms of defending the systems that they have put in place, and in fact was doing the rounds on the television networks here, trying to reassure Kenyans that he has put in place a system that is foolproof and that nobody can possibly rig these elections, and that this comes a day after he had been on television talking about that. And the fact that there are concerns, especially from the opposition, that some people may want to interfere with the process, nobody thinks anything other than the fact that his death must have some connection with the elections. Now, who would have that interest to kill him, to torture him? Nobody knows up to this point, but definitely everybody has the election in mind as far as his death is concerned.
So tonight, still more questions than answers. Vincent Makori, thank you very, very much for talking to us. That was Africa 54's Vincent Makori speaking to us live via Skype from the capital of Nairobi in Kenya. Well, there are only a few days left until Rwanda's presidential election on Friday, August 4th. President Paul Kagame is predicted by most analysts to win big in Friday's poll. Green Party candidate Frank Habineza and independent candidate Philippe Mpanyimana are fighting an uphill battle against Kagame, who has won landslide victories in the last two presidential elections. VOA's Eddie Rema spoke with the executive secretary of Rwanda's National Electoral Commission, Charles Munyaneza, about election observers and the vote being a foregone conclusion win for Kagame.
Let me first say two things. One, we know of countries where elections have taken place and there have been no election observers. And that has not taken away the credibility of these elections. For instance, we in the National Electoral Commission, and as far as I know, we Rwandans have never gone to observe elections in America, have never gone to observe elections in Europe, and that has not taken away the credibility of those elections. So in the first place, much as the observers are good, depending on their recommendations and the advice that come after the polls, it is not only election observation that makes elections credible. There are many factors, especially how the elections are managed locally and how people are serious as nationals and the commission, how they take the elections. So it's not about the credibility of observers only, but there are also factors. And for us, we think this is important. Secondly, we have got very many observers right now as I talk. We've got over now 1,700 election observers already accredited. And the process ends on that. This number could rise up to 2,000. Of those, we've got over 400 international observers from Europe, from Africa, and everywhere. Now, specifically talking about one organization that said originally that they wouldn't be sending these observers, especially the European Union. I think it was a misrepresentation. What they have not done is sending people from Europe, observers from Europe, from their countries. But as I talk now, we have accredited observers from each and every embassy, every European embassy accredited to Rwanda. They have sent observers, the English, the Germans, the Dutch, the Swiss, everybody has sent observers. So to us, we don't think that's a very big problem. As I said, it is not about observation, but also other factors that make elections credible. But I'm happy that Rwandans have turned up in large numbers to be accredited, and as far as we are concerned, if we can get advice from our local people, that is even more relevant than we would get from people coming from outside, some of whom may not be even understanding the context within which we manage our elections.
And that was Charles Munyaneza. He's the Executive Secretary of the Rwandan National Electoral Commission. To the Democratic Republic of Congo now, and police have arrested at least 128 people in a crackdown on protesters demanding that President Joseph Kabila step down at the end of the year. It happened during a series of marches across the country by the pro-democracy group Lucha. The demonstrations were backed by several leading opposition politicians. Human rights groups say the arrests took place in the eastern city of Goma, the capital Kinshasa, and 7 other cities. Police are not responding to requests for comment. Congolese authorities have banned opposition demonstrations since last September because of security fears. President Kabila's mandate expired last September, and his refusal to step down has fueled rising militia violence and insecurity in the country. Former Malawian President Joyce Banda says she will make herself available for questioning without delay. She is wanted in Malawi in connection to a corruption scandal in which millions of dollars were allegedly looted from government coffers. Banda is currently in the United States. Malawi police say they have found credible evidence linking her to theft of public money and say they have informed all Interpol member countries of the arrest warrant. Banda's spokesperson says the former president will comment only when the warrant has been served to her. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover here. You can join the conversation on Facebook. The address there is Africa 54. And please do check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Well, coming up, Gabon's program to promote women's fitness. Stay with us.
My name's Carla Babb, and I work the Pentagon beat. That access helps me to do better stories. Every day it's my responsibility to collect all of the defense news. It keeps our VOA viewers informed. I get to travel all across the globe. Anything that's defense related and how to protect and keep people safe, that's where I'll go. So it's never a dull moment at the Pentagon. My name is Carla Babb. This is my beat.
Welcome back. It's Tuesday, which means it's time for our health report. And joining us now is Africa 54's health correspondent, Lenore Madu, with a look at women's fitness in Gabon. Lenore.
Hello, Heidi. Hello, everyone. Well, the Libreville Fitness Tour is determined to round up 5,000 women to encourage them to exercise in an effort to prevent cardiovascular diseases and strokes. Run by Gabon's Youth and Sport Ministry, the Weekend Fitness program is exclusively for women and consists of 2-hour sessions led by professional coaches at the Zeng Ayong Stadium. Registration costs less than $5 and includes exercise kit and gear. Trainers want to introduce the women to easy exercise routines that can be done at home for those who cannot afford gyms or private classes. They also hope to help women maintain good psychological and mental health through regular physical activity.
The goal of organizing the fitness tour was to take indoor sports outside for the average person. The second goal of organizing this event is to fight aging and cardiovascular diseases. in women because women are the pillar of the world, and especially our nation, precisely is to allow these women to be much more fit and more fulfilled in everything they do.
Before the Libreville Fitness Tour, I wasn't really exercising, but ever since I started here, I feel in great shape physically. Exercise has always been good for the body.
And the weekend fitness program was initially planned to last for 4 weeks. However, high demand and enthusiasm from the women saw the organizers extend the popular sports caravan for 2 more months until the end of August. Now, researchers from Denmark say people who drink 3 to 4 times a week are less likely to develop type 2 diabetes than those who never drink. They surveyed more than 70,000 people on their alcohol intake, how much and how often they drank, and found that drinking moderately a few times a week was linked to a lower risk of cardiovascular disorders such as heart attack and stroke. They say wine appears to be particularly beneficial, probably as it plays a role in helping to manage blood sugar. However, the scientists warn that alcohol is associated with 50 different conditions, including some cancers, heart and liver disease, and people should be careful about their alcohol intake. Now, evidence of the role that a healthy gut plays in overall human health, both physical and even mental, is growing every day. To strengthen gut health, food researchers are trying to incorporate live bacteria called probiotics into all kinds of products, even beer. VOA's Kevin Enox reports.
Beer can be traced back in time nearly 4,000 years to a Sumerian rock tablet recipe. It's still really popular, but it is also alcoholic and not particularly good for you. That, however, may be changing.
Beer is, firstly, it's a challenging environment, so if you are able to incorporate probiotics, it will be a big breakthrough. And also because beer is something that is a beverage that will never die, it's frequently drank at social events. So in a way, there's huge market potential as well.
Researchers in Singapore have been working for some time to keep gut bacteria, called probiotics, alive in beer. The problem is that beer and probiotics don't tend to get along very well.
Hops is the main ingredient that kills probiotics, so we have to find a way in order to allow the probiotics to overcome the hops. So this process actually is quite tedious.
But they've done it, and here's the proof. Beer packed with gut bacteria that can improve your intestinal health and strengthen the immune system.
So the taste of the beer, it's a sour beer, so it will taste sour because of the probiotics that produce lactic acid. But at the same time, besides sour, it also has hints of fruitiness, and the alcohol content is around 3.5%, around the same percentage as other commercial sour beers.
Look at it bubbling. This is all natural. I didn't put anything else besides fruits and all that.
Melissa Mack sells kombucha, a fermented mixture of tea and yeast that also claims to have health benefits. Mack says she's willing to give a probiotic beer a try.
On one hand, you're thinking beer, that doesn't sound like a good thing at all, but yet, you know, you're adding stuff like good bacteria and yeast that's relevant, like lactobacillus, which is something that makes it a bit more sour. So you're thinking, okay, is this healthy or is this not healthy? No one knows for sure.
The researchers are currently in talks with beer companies that might be willing to mass produce and market the beverage. Kevin Enox, VOA News.
And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter at Lenore Moudou. Back to you, Heidi.
Thank you so much, Lenore. Be sure to watch Lenore Moudou's health reports every Tuesday and Thursday on Africa 54. So we're going to take a short break now. Still ahead here on Africa 54, a closer look at some of sub-Saharan Africa's most promising young leaders. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Think everything from fried cheeseburgers to Burmese soup noodles. You can travel the world at this London Food Festival, and every last bite is halal. The Halal Gems Street Eats Festival reflects both the food diversity and popular trends. The festival is showcasing fusion foods that combine Middle Eastern influences with the latest London foodie fads, from savoury to sweet. The Muslim Council of Britain says the UK halal food industry is worth nearly $4 billion. Celebrities of the past are being brought back to life on the back of people's heads in Taiwan. Let's explain. Now, whether it's Marilyn Monroe or Bruce Lee, hairstylist Alan Chen is expertly carving the images of famous people onto his clients. Chen has been carving patterns into scalps since he qualified as a hairdresser in 2003. 2 years ago, he started to focus on this, carving portraits of celebrities. Each portrait requires 2 to 3 hours of work, and the length of each strand of hair is crucial to the final design. One hair too short or left too long could ruin the perfection of, say, an eyebrow or the curve of a mouth. Head-turning hair doesn't come cheap, though. One portrait will set you back about $120. No, thank you. I prefer my portraits on the wall. And finally, millions of eyes will be fixed on the sky when a full solar eclipse crosses the United States on the 21st of August. Manufacturers are busy making demand for the huge crowds that will flock to the coast-to-coast event. The moon's shadow will fall in a diagonal ribbon across the U.S. from Oregon to South Carolina. It will last up to 2 minutes and 40 seconds. The rest of the country will experience a partial eclipse, along with Canada, Central America, and a bit of South America. And that is what is trending today. Well, nearly 1,000 young African leaders are taking part in a 6-week leadership and academic program at 38 U.S. colleges and universities, and they've gathered in Washington, D.C. They're on the final leg of their Mandela Washington Fellowship. The fellows will meet with leaders of U.S. government, business and civil society this week. VOA's Henok Fente traveled to Williamsburg, Virginia, to learn about the kind of training the fellows received and how they plan to bring change to their communities at home.
At the College of William and Mary, 25 youth leaders from Sub-Saharan Africa are participating in an Ideas Summit. They have developed and refined their ideas with close mentorship and academic training they have received in the United States, with the hope of implementing them in their respective countries. Janine Abatan is from the West African nation of Benin. She is currently working as a researcher for a regional peace and security think tank in Senegal. She is coordinating a project that studies why youth are involved in violent extremism in Niger and Mali.
I want to make sure that people understand why young people, by young people I mean women and men, why do they find themselves in violent extremist group? What do they, why they found themselves there, but also how they find themselves there. Because I believe if we know the motivation, what motivates people to get involved in violence, we will be able to counter other people from going, and we will also be able to prevent other people from joining violent extremist groups.
Timitope Kalejaye is a filmmaker from northern Nigeria, where the Boko Haram extremist group operates. She uses storytelling to provide an education for children to proactively engage them before they can possibly be recruited by militant groups.
As a journalist, I'm more focused on working with children, and that's why I made a film about children who possibly can be recruited by Boko Haram.
Making sure that people understand why and how people find themselves in those groups, we will be able to influence government policy. We will be able to make sure that government policy are appropriate, they are context specific, because every context has its own challenges. We need to understand the context, and we need to make sure that those policies are effective in countering violent extremism.
Cameroonian Tem Fuumbu is passionate about bringing reform in the criminal justice systems across the continent. Many of Africa's justice systems are marred by lengthy pre-trial detentions and overcrowding. Mbu says his 6 weeks in the United States have been inspiring, especially learning about independence of America's judicial institutions.
U.S. courts, ordinary courts, could hold up the President Trump's executive order on immigration. I think that's something that I can say very confidently cannot happen in my country, because the courts don't have that kind of power and the judges don't have that kind of independence to be able to make such decisions. So my 6 weeks here have been very illuminating. They've taught me a lot. They've given me a lot more perspectives on how to go about solving some of the many wicked problems that we have back home.
Marianne Jabang is a social worker performing final rites on departed females at a central mortuary in the Gambia. Marianne says most of the washers that perform the religious Janazah cleansing ritual are men, making gender an issue post-mortem.
When a woman dies, you always have to go out to look for a female volunteer that will come and shower these bodies, because it's a skill that they learn. It's just not any woman can do it. It's more like a cultural ritual. So you have to get these women to always come and do it because they're not employed in the mortuary.
In Tanzania, Nima Kiswaga founded a youth leadership academy where she works as a coach and mentor to several of her peers.
We are empowering this young generation to become leaders of change, to take part in improving our socio-economic development, but also to grow themselves as a leader and to become competitive in the job market as well as entrepreneurship.
The Young African Leaders Network was started by former U.S. President Barack Obama 7 years ago with the aim of nurturing Africa's youth and increasing cooperation with the continent. In addition to the flagship Mandela Washington Fellowship, regional leadership centers have been established all over sub-Saharan Africa. Nancy Hopkins is director of one of the Yali partner programs, the Presidential Precinct.
And so it's really aimed at giving these 25 emerging leaders from across the continent the building blocks to go back to their countries and redouble their efforts to create positive change in their countries.
As the youth leaders prepare to return to their native countries, they hope the networks they have created through their leadership journey and the trainings they received would help them flourish as leaders of social change.
It has made me more Pan-African.
My passion for leadership brought me here.
I have met with more than 25 young generation leaders across Africa.
That is their leadership takeaway. As for their favorite American food?
Well, I've been eating the burgers.
A great barbecue.
For the past 6 weeks, participants of the Mandela Washington Fellowship, it's close to 1,000 of them, amazing leaders from the continent in civic leadership, in governance, as well as young business owners and entrepreneurs, have gathered here in the U.S. to learn from U.S. institutions, academic and otherwise, creating partnerships with one another before going back to their communities to effect change. VOA News, Henok Fente, Williamsburg.
And that is our show for today. From all of us here, it's good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Most people enjoy listening to music. But is this expression actually about songs and tunes?
Music to my ears.
Jonathan, I cannot believe we have to work over the weekend.
Did you not hear the news? The meeting for the project got canceled. No work this weekend after all.
Awesome! That is music to